I interrupted my Attack on Titan marathon for this. I hope you're happy. On a completely unrelated note, I was thinking about how I had watched 2 consecutive Spider-Man movies for my MCU Phase 4 ranking video, and decided to put my rewatching of those movies to another good use, ranking every Spider-Man film. I mean, it was also an excuse to watch the original Spider-Man trilogy since I had never seen it, but otherwise, yeah, I had no reason for this one. And yet here we are. This video will have some very hot takes, so be prepared to get mad and leave obnoxious comments. By the way, I'm not counting the low-budget TV movies from the 70s, or that Japanese one that everyone likes for some reason, or the Sony Villain Universe movies. But maybe I'll watch and rank them all if you guys give me to 300 subs. And so, without further ado... Oh boy, I have been dying to talk about Spider-Man 3. I'm so excited, I don't even know where to begin. We got Bully Maguire. We got an alarmingly petty version of MJ. We got Harry turning into Green Goblin for no apparent reason. We got a side villain who also happens to be the most likable character in the movie. Okay, I'll start with Bully Maguire and work my way down. As soon as Peter gets the symbiote, he instantly becomes the most obnoxious character I've seen probably ever. I know he can't control it, but it's still super frustrating. Or at least it would be if this movie wasn't as funny as it was. I'm seriously putting this in my top 5 favorite comedies of all time. I can't explain why, but it's simultaneously the worst superhero movie ever and the greatest comedy of all time. There are so many layers to its awfulness that it's comical. Every bad thing about it comes off as so laughable that I'm actually having a great time watching it. After MJ sees Peter kiss Gwen, which is literally done for the crowd, she becomes incredibly petty and jealous about it for no reason. Harry becomes Green Goblin for 10 minutes at the beginning and 10 minutes at the end. They take an already not that well-defined hatred for Spider-Man and just crank it up to 11 here. The rest of the time he just fricks around in his mansion doing practically nothing. Actually, that's a good phrase for the rest of this cast too. Peter just goes out of his way to be uncomfortably mean-spirited for a good chunk of this film. I love it when the protagonist is completely unlikable and irredeemable. By the way, him being unlikable doesn't even progress the story like it does in something like Cars. And even Lightning McQueen was a little likable. Peter just creates problems, then clumsily solves them after he gets the symbiote off. The only characters who had anything to the story here are Peter, MJ, and Harry. Everything else just happens by coincidence or accident. Sandman, the one actually semi-compelling thing about this movie, gets forgotten about until the final battle, where he and Peter actually have this unironically great moment, where Peter forgives him for killing Uncle Ben. But all in all, I can't recommend this movie enough. I might have to make a whole video on it. It's just that funny.
So I took her to the homecoming dance.
Shocker was in this movie! Massive W! Greatest Marvel character of all time, baby! Petition to get a solo Shocker movie made and written into the Sony Villain Universe, please, Marvel. Okay, this is probably going to stir up some dormant rage that you guys didn't even know you had, but I really did not love Spider-Man Homecoming on rewatch. Let's start with the good stuff here. Michael Keaton as the Vulture is perfect casting, even if Vulture was kind of a bland villain overall. Tony Stark is still great, and I love the theme of trying to prove yourself, then screwing up, then getting your privileges taken away, and getting lectured about how you've only got yourself to blame. I think Spider-Man is the perfect character to have that kind of movie with someone like Tony. The score and CGI aren't bad either. Also, shocker! Aside from all that, though, this movie is not great. Mostly because, aside from Spider-Man, Peter Parker is not very realistic. Like, does this kid look like a high school loser? Do these guys look like best friends? And one last school-related complaint. Boo, that is not Flash Thompson. The real Flash isn't this unlikable. I mean, okay, he's kind of funny, but he's not supposed to be. Whatever, maybe I'm just comparing him to the Amazing Spider-Man Flash. I need a great Peter Parker to have a good Spider-Man. To be fair, though, the Spidey stuff here is not bad. Like I said, Tony as this disapproving adult/mentor was really fun, and I love he and Peter's relationship. Vulture is a passable villain, but kind of generic and tedious, honestly. The whole 40-year-old dad becomes a criminal to provide for his family, and he has a daughter who he loves dearly or whatever has been done a million times before. Although I will say that even though it's repetitive, he is one of the better versions of this stereotype I've seen. The Miles Morales references are incredibly dumb, and I'm 100% convinced we won't see him in the MCU for a very long time after this. All in all, not great. Watch it for Michael Keaton and Tony Stark, I guess.
Certificate man.
Okay, not gonna lie, I was kind of expecting more going into the first ever big-budget Spider-Man film. This movie is just kind of bland, honestly. Hot take, but I think Tobey Maguire was kind of a weird choice for Peter Parker, and it feels like a lot of his line deliveries were taken when he was really bored, and it kind of feels like he always has the same facial expression. Really hot take, but I also don't like Sam Raimi as the director. Spider-Man is certainly not a horror icon, and the horror elements of these films just distract from what's really important. I mean, it's good for when Green Goblin is being creepy, but other than that, it doesn't work too well for me. Don't get me wrong, I would still watch this again, but as is, it's really nothing special. I was also really craving like Rhino or the Vulture to come in and team up with Green Goblin. Like, I think the reason this movie doesn't work for me is because there's only one real threat. I'm kinda used to Spidey fighting multiple baddies, and I like it that way. But shoving that aside, this movie is still good. Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn / Green Goblin is fantastic. I love that he puts on different voices for each version of the character. It's just perfect. I distinctly remember the scene where Norman talks to the mask, freaking the heck out of me as a kid, and the scene is just as powerful today. I also really like Aunt May. She is without question the most comic accurate thing about the whole film. J.K. Simmons is perfect as J. Jonah Jameson, and I love that he adds pretty much nothing to these movies whatsoever, but I still couldn't imagine Spider-Man without him. I think my biggest problem with this movie is Peter. He really just doesn't feel like Peter from the comics. He feels like, I don't know, a flavorless dope. He's not bad, he's just kind of a whatever protagonist.
A little bit of a blank slate, I guess.
Harry is also boring. That's all I have to say about him. I genuinely don't remember anything he did other than date MJ. MJ is a little more interesting because she actually has dreams and ambitions. Peter's whole motivation once he becomes Spider-Man is date MJ and stop Goblin once he exists because he's here now. Anyway, this movie has a lot of fun and whimsy and it's fine for what it is, but by today's standards, it's not really anything special.
Why are you here?
Because you're amazing!
I'd heard terrible things about the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but I remembered really liking them. And yeah, I was right. The Amazing Spider-Man is pretty good. I think these segments are going to be less me explaining my feelings on the films and more just me trying to convince you that they aren't bad. Say what you will, but while Andrew Garfield may not be the best Spider-Man, he's definitely the best Peter Parker. He's so much better at emotions than Tobey and Tom, both things that are somewhat lacking in those two. I'll admit, I almost teared up multiple times in this movie. There's this one scene that, I'm sorry, might be my favorite in the entire film. After Uncle Ben dies, Flash Thompson comes up to Peter, and before he can say anything, Peter grabs him and shoves him up against the wall. Then Flash says,
It feels better, right? Like your uncle died. I'm sorry. I get it.
which implies that he too has lost something like that, and oh my gosh, it's just too much. Taking this one-dimensional jock bully dude and turning him into something like this is phenomenal. In this movie, we really get to know Uncle Ben. That's something you can't say about any other Spider-Man movie. In the Raimi movies, I didn't cry at Uncle Ben's death because I didn't really know him. Here, Uncle Ben is practically front and center for the first half hour. Uncle Ben is so good when he's around. You know that he genuinely loves Peter and wants him to succeed, but also realizes that he needs to be disciplined in order to do so. He just behaves exactly like a real father would, and if the movie had told me that Uncle Ben was his real dad, I would have had no trouble believing it. I was very uncomfortable when Ben told Peter to get in the house and give his aunt an apology, and then teared up when Peter said,
It's all well and good, so where is he? Where's my dad? He didn't think it was his responsibility to be here to tell me this himself.
after Ben compared him to his father. I'm sorry to spend so much time on the emotional aspects, but they're just that good. Andrew also stays a normal person for a lot longer than Tobey, which is refreshing. Dr. Connors is a great metaphor for when you become so obsessed with something that you won't let anyone else keep you from it, no matter who gets hurt, and it starts to transform you. Gwen is way better and 10 times more fleshed out than she was in Spider-Man 3. Captain Stacy is even better, and I love his relationship with both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. All in all, a great, emotional, absolutely underrated time.
You know, it's a two movie, but it's not a Bug's Life too.
Okay, so the Raimi trilogy is weird because its second movie is definitely the best, but that's usually something you can only say about the greatest film trilogies of all time, such as Star Wars, Toy Story, or the Dark Knight trilogy. But oddly enough, this is the best of the three. Peter is still kind of boring here, and MJ is only a little better, but this movie is different because it feels more emotional than the others. I thought Doc Ock was actually a really great villain, and I love how simple he is. Actually, that's a great phrase for this whole movie. Its simplicity works in its favor, whereas the first movie could have been drastically improved by adding a couple more villains and, maybe Harry could have actually done something. But with this movie, I think adding more villains and plot lines would have seriously hampered its storytelling capability. I also love Peter's decision to give up being Spider-Man. I think it's really unclear what made him lose his powers, but I guess it was him not believing in himself. Yeah, they should have made that more clear. Whatever, I can live with it. Wasn't I talking about Doc Ock or something? Yeah, he's great. I don't really have anything else to say about him. I like that he's evil because he goes insane, and I like that he redeems himself at the end. That's kind of his entire character, and it works beautifully. I actually have shockingly little to say about this movie. It's a nice, even 8 out of 10.
You're miles and miles from your nice warm bed.
I just talked about Far From Home in my MCU Phase 4 ranking. It's not actually Phase 4, but I forgot it wasn't, so it's in there. It's still really fun and funny, and I love Mysterio. Just go watch the segment on it in that video. I'll link it in the description.
Miles and miles and miles.
I doubt I can say anything you haven't already heard about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, the animation is literally the second greatest I've ever seen in my life, and I bet you can guess what the first is. I have to say though, this movie got a little worse for me on rewatch. I think Kingpin is kind of a bland and underdeveloped villain. I think these other spider people are kind of annoying because they don't really add anything to the story. Like, they could have given each of these spiders distinct motivations for wanting to get home, personalities beyond what their animation style implies, and further explored what makes them do what they do. Gwen is relatively fleshed out, and I do like her as a character, but it kind of feels like she doesn't do much either. She at least moves Miles' arc forward, and she does serve as a better love interest character than most in animated movies, because she actually adds at least, something to the story itself. But whatever, this movie's great. Miles is the most three-dimensional character I've seen in a very long time, and Peter B is just as good. These great characters only contribute to the stunning emotion of it all. Miles' relationship with his uncle Aaron and his dad are both handled perfectly, and the only thing I could think of that could improve them is if they fleshed out Aaron's relationship with his brother a bit more. My hand physically moved over my mouth when the news anchor said that Spider-Man had been found dead. Like, I legitimately felt like one of these civilians finding out about this online. And the song they played, oh my gosh, it's so impactful and fits with the scene perfectly. By the way, the songs in this movie are also incredible. The official soundtrack by tons of black artists is one of the best officially licensed soundtracks in any movie ever. Other than that, this movie also has great fluid action and fantastic voice acting. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I think you already know what makes this movie so good. Can I be done now?
Okay, I have another one. 2 words. The first word is Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 2?
Okay, who's cheating?
Okay, time for my hottest take. Are you ready? Can you handle the fact that I get more enjoyment personally out of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Yes, I absolutely, positively, genuinely do. I had seen the first hour or so of this movie a while back, but never finished it. And after seeing the whole thing for the first time, I so wish I had. This is not only 30% better than The Amazing Spider-Man 1, but it's better than most other Spider-Man projects as well. I always hear people say that these movies are bloated messes that can't handle all the subplots they have, and to that I say, what are you people smoking? They juggle all these plot lines perfectly. Say what you will, but Peter and Gwen's relationship is genuinely heartbreaking. You want them to be together, and it's so sad to realize that they can't be. Well, I mean, then they are together, but shut up. Electro is one of the most terrifyingly realistic villains I've ever seen. In a day and age where people are killing themselves over their AI girlfriends, it doesn't seem like any sort of stretch how obsessed this guy is with Spider-Man. And the crazy thing is, he's only gonna age better and better as time goes on. Even without his realistic motivation, he's still incredibly intimidating. His techno theme is sick as frick, and I get chills whenever I hear the lyrics. Yes, you heard me right. This film track has lyrics to portray schizophrenia, and it's way more effective than it should be. I think it's a little annoying that Harry just conveniently exists and is apparently Peter's best friend now, but he's also kind of the best character in the movie, so I can overlook that. I don't know why, but he is so intimidating. Once he goes insane and starts smiling all the time, he's just an absolute haunting blast to watch. He's not like Harry in Spider-Man 3 at all, and trust me, that's a good thing. Peter is just as good as he was in the first movie, and Andrew Garfield is still killing it. After seeing this duology of movies, I said to myself, this is how Spider-Man should have been introduced to the MCU. I genuinely hate the way Spidey was introduced to the MCU. I know it was because of Sony and Disney fighting over their action figures, but it still makes for abysmal cinematic universe structure. Plus, if this movie had been successful, we would have gotten the Sony villain universe movies in the same universe as this Spider-Man, and quite possibly the MCU. Try and imagine Kevin Feige in charge of the Sony villain universe. Yeah, it's a billion times better. The only thing I can think of that I genuinely hate about these movies is that J. Jonah Jameson isn't in them. I mean, if it was because J.K. Simmons refused to come back, then fair enough, because there is no J. Jonah Jameson without him. But it just feels like there's a hole here. Like, J.K. Simmons plays the character in everything else. I mean, come on, he's in the freaking Insomniac games. Like, give me a break.
How many more spider people are there?
Save it for Comic-Con.
What's Comic-Con?
Likewise, I also talked about No Way Home in my MCU Phase 4 ranking. Just go watch that. One new thing I do have to say is that now that I've seen the Tobey and Andrew movies, their roles in this one is made a lot better.
Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man.
Friends, before we continue, I want you to know what a state of nirvana I am in watching the following movie. Its gloriousness dwarfs that of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and The Dark Knight, two nearly flawless films and some of the greatest movies I've ever seen. But Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is different. It takes everything that was great about the original and cranks it up from 8 out of 10 to 15 out of 10. I can't explain how. I genuinely didn't even know movies could be this good, to quote Schifferless. The animation is somehow cooler and even more visually interesting than the first film. The characters are at least twice as compelling as they were in the first film. The villain is 3 times as intimidating than in the first film. If I thought for 40 days and 40 nights, I bet I could not come up with anything that could possibly make this movie better. Well, I mean, aside from maybe 1 or 2 slightly cringe jokes. Spider-Man No Way Home isn't even on the same footing as this movie. I genuinely don't know how they did it, but every scene, every line of dialogue, every tiny background detail, it all works perfectly, and every time I watch this movie, I never want it to end. The fact that they changed the art style for each different universe is so inventive and fits perfectly with this movie's story. Gwen's watercolor dimension is my favorite because they sometimes change the colors and backgrounds just because it's cool and fits with the tone of the scene. When the watercolor starts to drip, you know that the characters are getting emotional, and I adore that. The Spot's transformation from a villain of the week to a multiversal threat is really scary and powerful. All the new Spider people actually add things to the story instead of just being boring background characters. I love Miles' relationships with each new character, from Hobie to Paviter to Miguel to the Spot. Oh, they're all so fantastic. Miguel is also great as a disapproving teacher kind of character, and it genuinely makes me uncomfortable when he says how Miles messed everything up. And it's so powerful to see Miles go against the status quo and defy Miguel, because yeah, like, what is he supposed to do? Just let his dad die? It all feels completely justified on both ends, and you want Miles to keep going against Miguel's wishes. I only hope Beyond the Spider-Verse can keep up this level of quality, although I doubt it, because I'm convinced that no movie I will ever watch could possibly top this unreal a level of peak. Everything about it works to its absolute fullest potential. Everything.